Hey guys, I am here today with Ryan Dunphy, who is a stress management expert, and we want to talk today about how we are going to be helping your students and yourself as parents overcome some stress when it comes to figuring out life after graduation. So, welcome, Ryan. It's great to have you on here again. We had a great conversation last time, and I'm really looking forward to learn more from you today.
Wonderful. Thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah. So I kind of just diving right in, we were talking earlier, at this point in time, it's January, we're going into February, and a lot of parents or students are getting their acceptance letters from multiple different schools. And now it's kind of the stressful part of, where do I go to school? And, as they're wrapping up on ACT scores, SAT scores, just a lot of things going on this time of year now that we're past the holidays. Just love to get your feedback on what you think is best way for students and parents to kind of put the stress aside to make very good educated decisions around what they're going to be doing.
Sure. Definitely is a stressful time of the year. Everybody's kind of starting a new chapter, starting a new story or volume, depending on how you look at it. And this can be a very overwhelming time. And that's one of the things that I'm seeing with a lot of my clients and a lot of my speaking engagements now is in 2020, people are feeling very overwhelmed. And a lot of that is due to the amount of choices that we have in our daily life now. Because a couple hundred years ago, we got up when the sun came up and we worked around the farm. And then when the sun started to go down, we went back inside and then we went to bed. And now we have constant opportunities for different things. And this is a very old operating system between our ears. So for a lot of people, if they get overwhelmed, they either can't make a decision or they make a bad decision. Most decisions made out of fear are usually bad decisions. And decision fatigue is a very real thing as well. When you think about, even if it's something with our health, we make all those great choices in the morning. And then sometimes if we're tired at the end of the night, it's whatever's there. And it's a can of some type of meat that's been at room temperature for a year, which is kind of scary. But for students, it's important to set time aside to focus on that discussion about if they're going to school, where they would want to go to school, and really importantly, why they want to go to school. Because it has to be important to them, because we don't want to put $100,000 or more into 4 years that at the end of that 4 years, they weren't passionate about that field to begin with. So it's important to have that discussion about what does the student want, not just, well, this is where mom and dad went to college, so I have to go here.
Yeah.
It's what's important to that person.
Yeah, I like that too because it's stressful to make this decision now, but unfortunately, if you make the wrong decision or like a not great decision based out of stress, then it's going to lead to more stress down the road,
Right.
which that can be very scary. And I think a lot of times too, if you had your top three or four schools picked, one might be better than the other, but not every the top two or three probably you can't pick a very wrong answer with that. Right, like you've
Right.
kind of done some scoping, so like don't stress yourself out too much over coming up with the perfect answer. Just make
Right.
sure that there's not a long list of reasons why you wouldn't go there.
Right. I narrowed my path down to two different schools, one in Pennsylvania, one in New Jersey, and ended up deciding on the New Jersey school because once I was accepted at both, well, I was accepted to three different ones. Then I said, all right, between these are my top two. I did another tour of each one
Hmm.
just to get a feel for the campus. I'd been there at this time, it was the fourth time being there because the first couple times it's very overwhelming. I'd never been on a college campus before, so it's shiny
Yeah.
objects everywhere. But you're able to go through with that lens of, can I see myself here for 4 years or 5 years or however long your program is, and also what is there to do in addition to the specific coursework. I chose Rowan University, which is about 20 minutes away from Philadelphia. So we had all the opportunities to go into the city and see different things, and the schools were actually equidistant from my home. So it's really a decision between, what does that school have to offer, and is this an environment I would want to be in for 4 years?
Hmm. I like that. Now, going along with that, kind of like I was mentioning earlier, we're kind of in this phase too where it just seems like you have a lot of deadlines, right? Like whether it be applications being turned in for juniors looking to be, as they get ready to start going into their senior year here in a few months. There's obviously projects due, SAT scores, ACT scores, all these different things going on. and that becomes very stressful because obviously students are in school for 6 hours a day, parents are at work for 8 or plus hours a day. How do you suggest to people to manage stress when it comes to just feeling like there's too much going on or too many things need to get done and not enough time?
Sure. So those to-do lists can definitely grow and grow into giant hairy monsters in a hurry, but it's important to prioritize your time. A lot of people talk about multitasking of, oh, I can multitask. I can do a few different things at once. And sure, I can walk and chew gum and, supervise my dog or my son at the same time. But there's a big difference between multitasking and multifocusing. You can't multi-focus. Again, very old operating system up here. So if you needed to take a day to take off work, if you have a PTO day, if your kid needs to miss a day of school to make a decision that's going to impact the rest of their lives, and you can truly focus that whole day, I say go for it. And
Yeah.
don't just try to fit in a massive decision like that. Set aside some protected time with some healthy boundaries to make a big decision about that. Have some in-depth conversations, explore all the different options, and then continue to narrow it down from there. I talked a little bit about overwhelm, but it's important to look at some of those details now because they're going to make a big difference over the course of the next 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, trying to avoid the overwhelm and really breathing,
Yes.
is a great thing. And I love how you post in your group too about taking walks, right? I think when you're in the middle of just chaos going around, it's very difficult to even find an ounce of freedom or like the room to focus. And obviously, it just seems like everything's coming down. So yeah, taking a step away, breathing, and or a walk. I mean, I love that. Like it's cold this time of year, obviously, so it's a little bit more difficult to do. But I think getting outside, getting in nature, and kind of just breathing through will help things tremendously.
Right, right. And there's no such thing as bad weather, just poorly dressed people. So
Yeah,
we have gloves, we have hats. And even if we go outside for 15, 20 minutes, I'm not sure if you saw my post yesterday, but I had lunch outside. It was 34 degrees. I found a little nook in the back of the deck there where it was a little sunny and protected from the wind. And I was outside for, 15 minutes. And it made the whole rest of my day better because I took a little bit of time for myself. Aside from
that's
taking the picture, I wasn't on the phone either.
Yeah, that's great. And the interesting thing about that, I think, is honestly just being aware and self-conscious of how much you need that.
Right.
Right. So like because you put focus into that and I mean, and I would have just walked outside and said, it's too cold out here. Right. There's times that I go step outside and for a walk and it's kind of too cold. But you like made on purpose made sure that you could find a place to sit outside that you're going to be
Right.
comfortable enough to enjoy a full lunch. And it drastically helped the rest of your day.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And I think we're so used to just being always that we want to be super comfortable without like trying to work for it that we sometimes miss some of those opportunities to get the benefits of being outside just because it's like, oh, you take a step outside and make an instant decision of, I can't figure out a way to make this work.
Right.
I
Right.
like that. I saw too, another post that you've kind of seen a lot of people, myself included this week, honestly, it's been kind of just a crazy week. I don't know if it's something in the air or like the way that the planets are aligning. So how do you manage people? Because obviously everybody has bad days and I'm very full of positivity, but like I've had a couple bad days this week. How do you recommend to people like when they're in the middle of like a bad day or multiple bad days, like what can they do to get out of that funk?
Sure. So one thing that's really vital is to assess what is really stressing you out. I'm part of a couple different parenting groups, and one person was sharing about before you get furious, get curious. And I thought that was really interesting. Of why am I freaking out? Why am I stressing out so much about this? Um, Assess, is this a life-threatening situation or is this not a life-threatening situation? These things, email is the new lions, tigers, and bears. Again, very old operating system. And we get like this when we have too many notifications coming in or another phone call. It's important to assess why am I really this choked up about this? Is it something that is actually life threatening? Am I making too big of a deal out of it? And one of the things that I work with everybody on is how many of our problems are the same problems our young kids have? How is our decision making affected when we're tired? What choices are you making when you're hungry? How do you
Yeah.
feel if you're not moving enough and you're antsy? So it's like these complex problems that we either have or we have created, oftentimes they're very simple solutions that we can almost overlook. Of, I want to make sure I have a great night's sleep before going to tour that college. I want to make sure that I'm eating real food, enough of it and not too much, so that way my body has the nutrients. We can't just keep skipping the gas station and driving our car and expecting that to work. And we can't keep constantly burning the candle at both ends and not sleeping enough, because then our decision making ability is hindered. And especially for a huge decision like this, for us at 8:30, all the screens go off in our house. I have an alarm on my phone that goes off for screens off, and then another alarm that says, unwind, start to get into bed. And it's part of a healthy time boundary routine. But it's very easy to stay up on these things for a long time. Coming from a former Blockbuster employee, we now have these overwhelming choices when it comes to Netflix and just this massive amount of access. But we have to use these tools with some responsibility, because they're all designed to keep you on them all the time. So it's important to take care of yourself. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling stressed out and you're dealing with these big decisions, carve out time to handle those effectively.
It's really interesting. Like, I kind of want to dive into, you were mentioning, imagine what our children are going through. So as an adult, obviously we have different responsibilities and different concerns. So we might be more worried about, bills being due, the mortgage payment
Right.
and stuff like
But
that.
similar needs. Right.
Similar needs, exactly. So to me too, as a parent, I feel like I have a responsibility to model how to handle stress.
Right.
And I typically handle stress pretty well. Like I said, with a lot of things going on right now with selling a house, buying a house, and busy days at work, like they have kind of caught up with me,
Sure.
and I don't enjoy it. And it's really funny because I see people that are stressed more often, and like I can't imagine dealing with that. And here I am now dealing with it. So trying to figure out the best way. And I did exactly what, as you said, is I'm like, why am I feeling this way? And I've been able to
Right.
kind of pinpoint a couple of very specific things, like, okay, well, these are temporary. So let's
Right.
just dig through and keep moving forward. But I think it's really important to teach children how to manage their stress and not to get too overwhelmed, because it, in the work, when they go in to get a career, like that's going to be really helpful. You don't want them to just like collapse when their boss gives them just one extra responsibility on
Right.
top of their list.
Yeah.
And for me, I want to be the guy that can handle as much as possible. We all have breaking points, but it's trying to grow that so that way you can balance more versus just give up after two bits of responsibility come across your desk.
Right. Right. And it's important on, where you're focusing. Am I focusing on right now? Am I focusing on a problem I had 4 years ago, or 4 minutes ago, or 4 hours ago? And even if you have a terrible 15 minutes and you're sitting in traffic and you're at a dead stop for 15 minutes, you can't let that ruin the whole rest of your day, because that's 1% of the day.
Yeah.
If, 1 hour is 4% of the day. So don't let 15 minutes ruin the rest of the 24 hours.
I love that. Yeah. And I think it's very common for that to happen, right? We tell people you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, right?
Right.
And you can just tell that like something upset them first thing in the morning, whether it be they got out of bed late or something happened with the kids or whatever it is. And like, yeah, you don't want to even talk to that person at the office. And like, you do not want to be that person. So I think
Yeah.
that's also of being mindful of how you're projecting yourself to other people when you're dealing with stress. I'm not saying you're
Right.
not allowed to be stressed, but
Oh,
just
totally. There's always a
understand.
bell curve. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But just understand that like how you're letting that affect you and other people around you.
Right. Right. And the decisions we make when we're either in the moment or after that, or just dealing with it. There's plenty of times where, I have a 3-year-old, and there's the term three-nager for a reason. And there's times where I want to go out in the garage and yell and scream into nothingness,
Yeah,
but that is not constructive.
yeah. I like
Might feel
that.
better in the moment, but it's not helpful in the big picture.
Yeah, as your kids are cowering inside because they heard you, screaming super loud outside.
Yeah, we don't want that. That's not helpful. That's not helpful.
Oh,
And yeah, it's, as you mentioned, a lot of people right now, and in the week that we're recording this, it's the 42nd week in January, because this month has seemed to be so incredibly long.
uh-huh.
And Christmas was just a month ago, yet it seems like it was months and months and months ago. Um, but yeah, there's a lot going on right now, but it's quarter one, and that's okay. We take the heavy seasons with the slower seasons, and that's what creates that dynamic balance of life.
I love that. Yeah. So as we wrap this up, Ryan, what is something you really like to portray to people that either deal with stress on a daily basis, or maybe looking forward? Like, what is the best way that you recommend to just avoid stress, when possible?
Right. So, kind of the process I take a lot of people through is really assess where it is. We spoke about that earlier. Why, like, get curious before you get furious, or
Hmm.
if you find yourself furious, get curious. Really assess where that is coming from, what that is, and then how can I simplify this problem? Whether it's less time involved with something that's problematic, or just breaking it down to that simple nuts and bolts of what is the problem and where does it come from. Like I said, is it because you're tired, you're continually making this bad choice? Is it because you're hungry? Is it because you're not sleeping enough? What is the problem? Where is it coming from? Why are you responding like that? And one big thing I have a lot of people do is delegate small stuff, because there are only 24 hours in every day. And John has the same 24 hours that Ryan does, and The Rock and Oprah have the same 24 hours as well. Granted, they have a few more resources in the way of money, but they have the same time allocation. So, what can you delegate out? I tell a lot of young parents that are expecting a child, it's okay to get a house cleaner for 3 months. That is okay. I had other people cancel their cable bill to get a house cleaner. It opened up Saturday mornings and she could go out to brunch with her girlfriends, and ended up saving money and opening up all this extra time. So assess, simplify, delegate, and then prioritize. And the prioritization, it shifts here and there. So if right now the priority is picking a school, or if the priority is SAT, if the priority is studying for a certain exam or doing a project, keep the main thing the main thing. And if that's the biggest thing, then it's going to make all the difference. And as soon as I make that decision of this is where I'm going to school, how many other problems are eliminated? How much time am I spending thinking about that? I'm going to have a lot more energy once I make that choice.
I love that. So where can people get a hold of you? I know you have a parents group, you've your stress management. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Sure. So I am all over Facebook. I have a page on stress reduction and time management. But anybody that has kids, which I'm assuming would be most of the people watching this, I
Mhm.
have a group called the Adventurous Parents Community. We're just about to crack 500 members. So we have parents from all over the country, and we're all on the journey and an adventure of parenting together. So it's a fun place to share some tools and tactics and ideas. We would do every Wednesday a big brainstorming session. Last Wednesday we did it about, cheap or free date nights. This week we did it around eating and some easy recipes for the crock pot. And there's a little bit of everything. And I run a lot of what I do with corporations around stress reduction and time management through the lens of parenting. So you can just type in the search bar on the top of Facebook, Adventurous Parents. You'll see my smiling face on there, and an enormous amount of blue. So Facebook is always the easiest way to find me. I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn.
That's awesome, Ryan. Yeah, and I love the group too, because parenting is definitely a job that many of
Oh yeah,
us are always figuring out. So being able to learn from other people that might have an advantage in one area or the other is fantastic. But
right.
thank you, Ryan, for coming here today and just talking about stress management. And I really think this will help the parents that are watching, or their students that are watching, as they get close to the end of their year, of their school year, and figuring out what's going to be next after that.
Wonderful, John. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, everybody have a great day. We'll see you in the future. Bye.